Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the BizTalk today. And I'm very happy, to be here with two extremely talented and entrepreneurs, so to say. So they are, Praful and Sachin. Let me just share a little bit about them. So Sachin is the founder and CEO of IQLECT, and he's also the author of BangDB. Sachin brings with him over 20 years of experience in software design, development, and project leadership in building high-performance, scalable, distributed software products and platforms for cluster computing and database. I'm sure that sounds a lot like the folks we have today as audience. So I'm sure you'll connect to him very well. In his previous avatar, before he founded IQLECT, Sachin was the CTO of Jabong. He's also been the CTO of LimeRoad and engineering head at Amazon for the e-commerce sponsored links platform. And he has co-authored and published multiple papers and developed several IPs in database technologies and concurrent parallel systems. Sachin is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur. Welcome, Sachin. We are pleased to have you here and look forward to a very engaging conversation.
Thanks, Madhurima. Thanks.
Our other panelist today is Prafal. So Dr. Prafal Chandra, he is the founder and CEO of Koinearth. He's also the professor of data science and machine learning at the International School of Engineering. And prior to this, he was principal data scientist at HPE, where his focus was on the application of machine learning techniques to solve real-world problems. His other industry experience includes position at HP Labs and Texas Instruments. He has an undergrad degree in electronics engineering from IIT BHU and a postgraduate degree in electrical engineering from Columbia University. He's a postgraduate diploma in public policy from University of London and a PhD in game theory and mechanism design from the Indian Institute of Science. Welcome, Praful. I must say that.
Thank you, Madhurima.
And I must say, I'm feeling like really privileged to be in such elite company today.
Nothing like that.
So yeah. So let's get started, right? I think with the pedigree that you have and the experience that you have, and both of you have worked in corporate sectors and now have moved on to the startup world. So before we jump into the discussion, if you can just take a few minutes to talk about what you are doing currently as part of your startup stint, that would be great. Praful, do you want to begin?
Sure. So Madhurima, we work primarily on a technology called blockchain. For those of you who have not heard about it, this is the technology which powered Bitcoin, and the origins of this technology lie in 2008 financial crisis in the US, which is when Bitcoin came out as almost an anarchical paper saying that we don't want banks. And from those interesting revolutionary origins, today blockchain technology has grown significantly. We personally work on what we call a hybrid architecture, where most of our code base sits on permission blockchains, and some part of our code base sits on public blockchains. Fundamentally, what we do is we build on existing blockchain fabrics like Hyperledger Fabric and Ethereum, and we build enterprise solutions for them. We are primarily focused in the B2B transaction space, which with supply chains and B2B marketplaces as value offerings of the product that we build. So that's a quick summary. If you're interested, please reach out to me. Happy to talk more. Sachin, over to you.
Thanks, Praful. Hi, everyone. I'm Sachin here. I'm founder of IQLECT, and we want to simplify and democratize the predictive real-time data analytics for better operational intelligence and business optimization. And this is pretty much aligned with the way the data trend is going. And it clearly suggests that we will have a lot more data coming in from devices and other such sources in coming days in real time, where the predictive real-time use cases would be a matter of survival for many businesses. So we want to create a converged platform, and on top of platform, we want to provide some set of solutions for small to large businesses to get started immediately and start solving the problems in the operational intelligence area. To solve this, we of course have created our own platform and our own NoSQL database, which is BangDB, and which actually is pretty much aligned with the way the data trend is going. And that's what we have been doing for the last couple of years. And as of now, we have a SaaS offering where you could consume these solutions on the cloud. And also, you can run the platform on cloud or on premise as desired. This is pretty much from very high level. Happy to go into details as we proceed.
Thanks, Sachin. Thanks, Prafal. So very, very interesting work that you are doing, right? And my favorite question to ask all entrepreneurs, and also in line with today's topic, that is, demystifying entrepreneurship. So my question to both of you is, what prompted you to start up, right? Both of you were having successful careers, in huge corporations. What made you start up? Can you shed a little bit of light on that? Sachin, do you want to go first?
Okay, great. So, Madhurima, as you said, we were comfortably working with big organizations and also trying to solve some of the contemporary problems. While doing that, both at Microsoft and at Amazon, we were always struggling to align with the changes that were happening in the market, and especially in the data area. And there's so many innovations happening in this area, like Hadoop and parallel processing and batch processing, macro or micro processing. But we always felt that there are a lot of work we need to do in order to get started and solve some of the simplest of the problems that we faced that in those days. So that was one motivation, that we really needed a new kind of a approach and from the system perspective also, in order to cater to those kind of use cases. So that was motivation number one. Of course, this market, if you see, it is growing with 32% per year, and it has been growing with such rate, in last decade also. So this is a good opportunity for anyone who is interested in data and databases and intelligence and analysis. So there was a clear opportunity for any guy to come in and try to create something and create some company or product and take it to a level where the larger goals of serving the businesses and customers, and apart from that also creating a wealth for everyone. So this was the motivation number two. And of course, being a tech guy, I always wanted to solve this problem, and I knew that if I am not going to solve this problem, somebody else will solve the problem, and there is not going to be one single winner in this space. This is such a big space. So there are going to be dozens of winners. I want to be one of them. So these were the motivations to take a plunge and get started with something in this direction, to solve the problem and also, get the benefit out of it.
Thanks, Sachin. Prafal, what's your story?
So, Madhurima, I think, let me say this, there is no rational reason to do a startup, okay, period. And I can stop there. It's, as me and Sachin were talking yesterday, it's a madhouse. Okay, it's chaos all the time. So if you can survive in that environment, welcome to the entrepreneurship journey. Otherwise, stay where you are. It's a really, really tough scenario. Now, what motivated? There are a couple of things, right? So one is the pace at which large enterprises move is slow. Right? And there are very good reasons why they move at a slow pace. And if you are the kind of person who is impatient with the speed at which your organization moves, that's usually the first trigger that you might take the jump. The second thing is the risk-taking opportunity. You have to be very, very cognizant of the impact that entrepreneurship is going to have on your personal finances. Okay, and as a rule of thumb, plan to have be in a scenario where you do not have a personal cash flow anywhere from 18 months to 24 months, right? Because this is everybody knows about this. The probability of success is fairly low. It is fun. Absolutely, it is fun because you have the authority and the ownership to drive your vision, but it comes with a lot of risk. And corporate jobs do provide a lot of de-risking. They provide a stable cash flow. So as I said, I mean, it's a hard life. It's an exciting life. If you can handle the risk and the uncertainty and the chaos, by all means jump in, but think twice before you do that.
Thanks, Praful. So yes, what you said, is something that we see day in and day out. Startups sometimes mean, the other word for chaos and risk taking, as you said, right? But now that you have, right, and since we are talking about some of the challenges you see, now that you have started up, what are some of the top challenges that you are facing? And I ask you this question, as individuals, what are some of the challenges that you are facing? And it could span all areas, right? Managing your company, managing the teams, managing your personal life. But if you can share more at a personal level rather than at your startup level, then that will be great.
Sure, let me take that first and then I'll hand it over to Sachin. So, Madhurima, we have a swing. I have a small garden and we have a swing in our garden. And while I was in HP, Saturday and Sundays used to be when you used to have the morning tea on the swing. And about 8 months ago, I was telling my wife that the key difference in my life before and after the entrepreneurship journey is that I haven't had tea on the swing since I did the startup, right? And that kind of is an indication of how life changes, right? The problem fundamentally is that as an entrepreneur, there are very few CPU cycles left in your brain for anything else other than work, because something or the other is going on, either on the technology side or on the cash fundraising side or on the PR side or on the marketing side, on the customer side. The benefit of a large organization is that you are working and responsible for a few things and the organization takes care of the rest of the things. As an entrepreneur, you have to juggle everything, which very often means that the personal life takes a hit. And for me, that has been the number one change between an entrepreneur and as an enterprise employee. Sachin, over to you.
Thanks, Praful. Um, Interestingly, I feel I totally agree with Praful that it's a really madhouse, and it's very, very hard. But at the same time, if you, it's personal choice also. I like being in this kind of position. The best thing about entrepreneurship is that, in some sense, actually, you have some control over a few things, which actually, you tend to lose when you work in a bigger organizations. And I like those freedom. And then, the ability to actually create your own plan around the day or the week is also a good thing. And if you are, let's say, really doing something which you like, then you feel happy entire day. So even if it is bad or a mad thing to do, I try to balance things as much as possible. Initially, this is not the first one for me. Earlier, I did it like 15 years back when I was single. It was a lot more easy at that point in time to do things, in this area. But this one I started when I had kids and two kids, two sons, and they were growing. One of the best thing happened with me was that I started spending a lot more time with the kids. So virtually, I have actually seen them growing every single day because I was sitting at home at that time and trying to build this company and product. So I got the opportunity to see them, grow every single day until they were like 5 or 7. So that I really cherish. My wife was supportive of all these things. So she also, sort of adjusted a bit with this new situation. Of course, the relatives and distant family members are not always supportive of these kind of things, so that you need to somehow manage. But once you once you do that, I think it's a pretty interesting space to be. Of course, things are tough, but things are tough in big corporate world also. We have worked in big companies, and everywhere life is not easy. Everybody is actually slogging and putting in a lot of effort. But this here, at least you will put effort in the direction that you like and the area that you want to put in. So for me, I think it's a nice space to be in. And if suppose whatever happens with this company, good or bad, I will again be in the same area. One call I have taken that I'm not going back to the corporate world. I'm not sending my CV again. So I will again, definitely be doing same thing 5 years down the line also.
Thanks. That's extremely interesting, right? Just to see how both of you have had different experiences doing the same thing, right? Entrepreneurship, and one of you said that you had less personal time, while Sachin, you said you could actually spend more time while building the company. So I think it also depends on the stage. So very, very interesting that. Now both of you spoke a lot about corporate world. Do share with us some of your experiences while you were in the corporate world. And the reason I ask this, right, being the individuals that you are, the entrepreneurship that you have displayed, I'm sure some elements of that would have been, a part of your earlier stints also. So anything in any interesting stories, any interesting experiences that you want to bring out, say, Praful, from your time at HP Labs or otherwise?
Sure, Madhurima. So let me share my couple of stories. So I was working in the US from 2001 to 2006. 2006 is when I decided to relocate back to Bangalore. At that time, I was being interviewed by a few corporates, and HP Labs was one of the places where I was interviewing. And after the technical rounds of discussions were finished, uh, the head of the lab at that time was a gentleman called Dr. Ajay Gupta, and the founder of the lab was Dr. Ramani. They had a call with me, and Dr. Ramani asked me something. He said something very interesting. He said, "You are joining HP Labs." Two things he said. He said, in a research lab, 40% of your job is sales. Okay, and that is, if you think about it, that's, you don't realize it. But he said that even if you join a research lab, you have to sell to internal stakeholders inside the organization. And 40% of the time is that. And your failure rate is 90%, right? Because if you work on innovative products, which is typically what happens in a research lab, 90% of the times you fail, and very often for reasons outside your control. At that time, I did not understand it. I just went with the flow, I heard it. Few years later, we ended up building a product which was kind of like a set-top box plus some sort of a home device combined. And we built the product from the lab's budget. We kind of made it work end-to-end, demo, software, hardware, everything was done. We took it to the business division. And the business division kind of looked at it, clapped their hands, said, very interesting. And then said, we really cannot take it to the market because we don't have a supply chain for this. Right? And that hits you like a ton of bricks, right? And you kind of think this is really stupid, that you are not taking an innovative product to the market because you don't have the supply chain for it. And today, interestingly, the world has come full circle, and I work on supply chains using enterprise blockchains. And I can understand the problems of those folks, how difficult it is to build a custom supply chain for a product that the company does not have a product line in, and what are the challenges for that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think kind of echoing what Sachin said, there are challenges both in large enterprises and in startups, but I think it's a maturity level of the individual that as you grow up and get exposed to different parts of how the world works, you kind of appreciate the problems. And depending on where you are in your journey, you understand different aspects of businesses differently. There are challenges both in startups and in large enterprises. In large enterprises, you have to sell to internal stakeholders who have their own metrics to take care of, who have their own KPIs to take care of. And of course, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to sell to other organizations, which is another story altogether. So yeah, it's not easy either way. But I guess the reason I kind of like entrepreneurship is the excitement and the authority. But the challenge of entrepreneurship is cash flow, because you have to worry about money, which you probably don't have to worry about as much in a large enterprise.
Thanks,
Sachin, over to you.
Praful. And I think money, not just for yourself, even for the people you have employed, right? You become
Absolutely,
responsible for
absolutely.
their well-being. And So the challenge just is multifold. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sachin, any of your experiences you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. I think, one the question was what actually prompted us to move to this area, the startup world. While working at my previous one of the largest e-commerce companies, and we were trying to build a ad platform, and we thought we did a great job, and we launched it on Friday evening, and Saturday morning everybody was woken up. We got pager that things are down, and several pages of that e-commerce websites were down because our system was down. And then we actually realized firsthand that the speed at which the data was coming, and the way different merchants have started uploading their data and started using it, our platform and system was not designed for such scale. And then with, like, 5 6 PhDs from Stanford sitting in the same room, we actually spent day and night for several weeks, and we couldn't fix the problem, and because the volume of the traffic was so high. And finally we did what everybody does: we had 50 guys here in India in operation, and started sampling and going through the manual process. So that was kind of a wake up call that if this is happening today, then tomorrow it is going to be worse. And if you see that Google published this data, that 90% of the data since dawn of civilization was created in last 2 years, which means that data is multiplying itself 10 times in 2 years. And Moore's law suggests that the hardware is actually supporting you only 2 times. So the ever increasing gap of 8 times is going to give you even worse nightmares. So we needed to actually do something. And that was the kind of we needed some push for me to start thinking in this direction. And then actually I started finding out the reasons and motivations. And that's how actually I quit the job on full-time basis and started doing this 100% time.
Thanks, Sachin. I think, today in this forum, all of us, understand the importance of being a data-driven company, large or small, and enabling others. So thank you for sharing that. Now that you run your own organizations, right, are there any examples that you can share where people are, displaying innovation or the entrepreneurial spirit in their day-to-day lives, right? Just to help people think about what innovation really means. Does it always mean, you have to start up, or while being part of something, you can do that? Any thoughts there?
Sachin, you want to take that first?
Okay, I'll go for it. Um, to me, innovation means spotting a problem, or a confusion or a chaos or something which is not structured, and then you come up with some idea to structure it, or solve that problem in some way. There could be multiple ways to solve the same problem, and then you actually come up with some idea and then go ahead and implement that, and then take it to market and see what's happening there. Now, there are several ways to do this. One is that it depends on your personal condition also. If you're financially independent, and to me, it is very, very important. Financial independence actually brings the creativity, frankly speaking. If you are bogged down by, how to put food on the table, then what happens to the creativity? That's a big question, the practical question. So we need to understand the context also, scenarios which are different for different people. And if suppose you need to be in the job, then it's always a good idea to be in the job. Most of the biggest companies that we see were created while the founders were still in the job. And you come up with something and then create a POC, take it to market, get some validation done, and then there is a time that you will feel on your own that this is a time to completely get out of my current job and start spending full time in this. So that's one way of doing it. Other way is that you have financial independence by some means, and then actually it's a lot more easy. It's an easy call for you. Um, but most of us, like Praful, I'm sure, and me, we were still in the job when we started thinking about all these things. So it works better that way, according to me. Taking care of your personal responsibilities also. Now, one critical thing I would like to share, when we think of starting something, we always think in this way. I mean, at least I was thinking in this way initially in both the scenarios, both the startups, that if it doesn't work out, 6 and 9 months, I will see and I will come back to the corporate world. It doesn't happen that way, frankly speaking. There are very less U-turns in that road, and it's a single directional, one-way kind of a highway. So need to be very careful before making that choice of completely getting into this on your own. But having said that, if you have figured it out with the data and the informed decision that you have taken, I think it's a good idea to spend 100% time on this, because with split mind and split responsibility, it is not possible to go the distance. So that's what my take would be, which is kind of a very vague answer in a sense that it tells you to do it also, and then also tells them take complete precaution before doing it. But this is how it will turn out when you actually run your startup. The cash flow is the biggest problem. Hiring is one of the biggest issues. Being productive all the time is really, really hard. There, as an entrepreneur, there are always 10 dreams on the table, and then you need to kill 9 and select one. How do you reconcile with this kind of thing on a daily basis? It's really, really hard. So it is going to be part of the journey, but taking informed decision with certain data points, there are thick thumb rules available. If we follow that, we minimize the risk. That's all, nothing beyond that.
Yeah, so let me first echo what Sachin said. I think most entrepreneurs have the story that the idea strikes them while they're at their previous job. They play around it with a little bit, but at some point you have to switch and make the commitment to be in it for the long term, because 6 months, 9 months is nothing. It takes years to build something of value. So it's pretty much a one-way street for a few years if you're taking the plunge. But to the larger question that you are asking, Madhurima, the word innovation is interesting, right? Because you talk to 5 different people, and 5 different people have different interpretations of the word, right? There are some people who qualify jugaad, the Indian jugaad, as innovation, and there are others who take that as jugaad as a very bad thing, which is not innovation, and that kind of bypasses the problem solving. Without getting into the semantics, in general, in a startup, when I look at my team, let me share this with you. I mean, look at the team, any team members, right? There are people who come back to you saying we have a problem. And there are people who come back to you and say, we have a problem and here is a solution that I'm proposing, right? The second set of people are innovators. The first set of people are not. It is as simple as that. If you can find a solution to a problem, one way or the other, that's innovation, right? And that's my definition of it. Of course, in the context of an entrepreneurial journey, Sachin points, I will just echo what Sachin said. There are several hardships, but innovation is only part of the entrepreneurial journey. There are other things that you need to solve to get here.
Thanks, Praful and Sachin. Yeah, so no, very interesting that you bring out. And as Sachin said, I'm telling you to do it, and I'm telling you not to do it at the same time. So, so
Yeah.
so my question again, just building on this, right? Do you really need to just start up to innovate, or can you do it otherwise? And you're best placed to answer this because you've seen both worlds.
I can take a stab at that and then I'll hand it to you, Sachin. Of course, you don't need a startup to innovate. I think that's a big misconception. You can absolutely innovate wherever you are. The only thing is, I'll tell you where the difference is. The 2 places where I see the difference is the space in which you want to innovate may be outside the boundaries of the organization that you are in, and that may leave you frustrated. Innovation, as I said, can be for any kind of a interesting, creative workaround solution, and it can take the form of a small piece of code. It can take the shape of a patent. It can take the shape of a copyright. It can take the shape of a process improvement, right? So innovation is all around us, finding problems and solving them. I think the advantage of having an entrepreneurship is the freedom to work on the problem that excites you, which may not be always possible in an enterprise setting. But with that freedom comes the responsibility to make sure that the innovation that you have done succeeds in the market. And that is a function not only of the innovation, but of market readiness, your ability to sell, your ability to convince others that it's an interesting problem to work on, to recruit them, your ability to convince investors to fund you, So it's not just innovation, it's a variety of things which you are signing up when you sign up for a startup. Sachin, over to you.
Thanks, Praful. I totally agree with that, what you said. If you see a lot of products in the market or even the tools in the market, they were not created by army of people. If you see Google file system, the big table, even the Linux operating system, they were created by one or two guys, all of these things. And in virtually the backbone of entire Google is these three, four things. So we don't need large set of people to do something, but it also depends on the problem that you're solving and the domain you are in. So for example, if you're doing supply chain e-commerce kind of stuff, you can't do it alone. You really need a solid team to handle several things, including operation. But if you're just solving a tech problem, which you think could be big enough to open up new opportunities and options in the market, then one or two guys can also do that pretty nice. PayPal is another example. So it depends on which domain you are in also, whether it's a hardcore tech stuff, or it's a hardcore operational stuff. It's a consumer internet, or a, kind of a core system programming related stuff. So there are multiple things over there, but end of the day, I think things need to be felt that this is the right time to add something. So when you think that now is the right time to expand, add people, this is the right time to add investors. Most of the people like me also earlier, we used to think if we add investors, it's going to be a lot more helpful. But that may not be the case all the time with every startup, because everything comes with some baggage. So you need to be in a position to take an informed call. What is the right time to scale and go to the next step? What is the next step, and how do we go to the next step? And it totally depends on the problem you're solving, domain you are in, the kind of expertise you have. How do you are you complementing yourself with some other person in the team, or do you want to add that? Are you going to go to market and create some GTM? So there are a bunch of things here, and you need support of different people at different stages. But to innovate and solve problem, I think the best way is to get started alone, in my opinion, alone or with a friend. As you know, somewhere I saw Ratan Tata said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go with the team. So initially, you really want to do something real fast to validate so many things, and then you want to scale. And that's where you need company, people, investors, customer, consumer, validators, so many other entities will start coming in.
Thanks, Sachin and Praful. Very profound statement, right? If you need to go fast, go alone, and if you need to go further, go with the team. And I think that's in some manner is being embodied in the spirit of the entrepreneurship program that we have at NetApp. So anybody who has an idea, can come there, discuss it, start on it, and build a team of like-minded folks and just get on with it, right? So that brings in the speed and the agility, and as they grow they get an opportunity to share it with the wider world. And I believe soon they'll be going to have the first showcase of the ideas, top 4 ideas that came in. So thanks for that. With that, we will open it up for questions, and I can see some questions here on chat. So, Praful, this is for you. And, with the hat that you wear of the professor of data science, this is related to that. Can you please comment on career transition to data science? Any piece of advice?
Sure. So first, let me set the context, right? Data science is basically a combination of 3 fields. One is the math, the second is programming, and third is domain knowledge. Now, the audience that we are talking to, I don't think programming is going to be an issue, so you can take that for granted. The domain knowledge, of course, comes with working in the domain over a period of time. The part of the puzzle that people find the hardest is the math part of it, right? Specifically, since if you have not been in touch with the math since your high school or your engineering, and you have been in the industry for some time, that is the hardest part that people find. Going back and learning is a challenge. Now, honestly speaking, the kind of math that is involved, if you want to really get deep into the subject, is a full-time course, right? I would say a full-time master's course or a full-time bachelor's course in data science is the right way to kind of go back to the basics and learn the subject from bottoms up. Having said that, that is not really possible for a lot of working professionals. There are two paths that I've seen people take. One is self-study, and the second is with the help of some sort of institute. If you are a fairly disciplined person, then there is enough material out there on the web to kind of um, become a data scientist by learning on your own, because there's no shortage of content. If, on the other hand, you are somebody who needs some structure, some discipline and guiding through the volume of information, then I would strongly recommend joining some sort of an institute or a course where there's somebody to guide you with this. It's not easy, especially if you have not been in touch with math, but it's absolutely possible to make that transition as a working professional.
Thanks, Praful. I hope that answers the question. The next question that we have is if you could share some key learnings, maybe some challenges, and how you overcome. So I think, during the course of this discussion, you did talk about that we did spend time on challenges. If you can spend some more time on the learnings, and also how do you overcome the challenges? Any tips and tricks that you want to share?
Sachin,
And
you want to take
this
that
question
one?
is for both of you.
Yeah, Sachin, you want to take the first shot at it?
Okay, good. See, there's, this is a tricky question. There are so many challenges and so many problems, but I'll not go into the details of these challenges, but every single day you will have one or the other problem. It is related to either people, product, customer, user, product, some issues, investors, scaling, fund. So some problem will be there, and uh, and then we'll also need to resolve them in much shorter span of time. As a startup, we can't afford to take a lot of time to respond to that. Something that works for me is sort of whenever there are challenges which are tough and difficult, and yet you need to respond to that. Then delaying the response for some small period of time, maybe um, take sleeping over it, or thinking through it, or taking a walk, will actually help you kind of gather the scattered pieces, and you will be able to make some informed decision. But apart from that, if it is related to people, which is more often the case, then you need to be really, really, sympathetic, and show empathy, and try and see how do you resolve the people's problem. Um, then there would be problem from the customer side, and you deliver X and they wanted 2X. So managing their expectation is another set of challenges. The key, I think, is to just keep doing it, keep going in the right direction, taking one step at a time, and eventually you will have enough understanding to completely resolve the issue. But what I'm trying to say is that there are going to be many small problems, many mid-size and big-size problems. um, Something that you can handle immediately, do it. Many of the problems you can't do it, so you need to think through it. And mentorship is a very good thing here. You need to really have some a mentor somewhere, and you can go and discuss some of these things. Reading some of the books and learning from somebody else's mistakes, and they actually help chalking out their own mistakes, and what happened when they did that, or versus that. So learning from those mistakes also, and trying to apply that in current situation in a better way, can also actually resolve some of these challenges. There is no cookie cutter solution here. Different challenge will ask for different kind of a response. We need to use a lot more common sense, and a lot more practical knowledge also. And of course, coupled with the set of data, whatever data that you have at that point in time, and then you try and respond to uh, those problems and issues. But there is no, I can't actually tell this is the right way or the wrong way. It also depends on your personality, my personality. Um, how we cope up with the problem, deal with the problem. But one thing is for sure that putting problem under the carpet is not a good idea, because eventually it will come out and bite you like a big bad snake. So taking things head on and keep working towards it. In India, the other problem you face is frankly speaking, the tax problem, government problem. Being a startup, we are a private limited company, but we have the same set of obligation as any other big company, and you need to do it on monthly, weekly basis. So there could be challenges over there also. So different problem, different responses, and you need to also along the way will figure out how to deal with those problems.
So yeah, so I mean, some of the tips that Sachin mentioned, I also use, especially not responding to an email when you are upset. That's like a golden rule of any business communication. But I think this is a very difficult question. It's like asking what is the success, what are the tips and tricks of a successful marriage? Okay, and if anybody can answer that, please let me know. There is no one golden formula that works anywhere. Startup, like anything, is part of life. So you have to kind of learn. I think the one thing that I will say is that you need mental resilience, because shit will happen, right? No matter what you do, shit will happen. And at some point you have to not let it affect you. Now, of course, that is easier said than done. So trying to kind of stay calm while shit hits the sky is one of the core, I would say, features of any successful, I won't even say entrepreneur, a successful person, that you need to be able to stay calm because bad shit happens.
Thanks, Praful and Sachin. I think I can write a book on, now how to succeed and completely demystifying the entrepreneurship thing. So I'll tell you my one thing that stood out for me from what Sachin said is that, you will do X and you will realize the expectation was 2X, right? Whether it's your investor, whether it's from your customer. So for those of us who are in these so-called jobs, the boss never goes away, even if you move to the entrepreneurship world, right? It's just a different boss. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I think all the points, taking one step at a time, keeping at it, having the mental resilience, getting mentorship. These all apply for us to become successful, right? Whether in an entrepreneur hat or whether just as in any area of life. I think so. Very profound. Thanks for sharing that. I'll move on to the next question. Your first customer experience and challenges which you faced, and how did you go about taking this to reasonable outcomes? So it's a subset of what we discussed. If you just want to focus on the first customer experience.
Right. Let me take a shot at that, and then I'll hand it over to Sachin. So for us, we started in 2017 early. And the biggest problem that we found with our first customer was just explaining what we were saying to them, right? Remember, I came from a technology and science background, and we work with customers in manufacturing and process industries. It was like one person was speaking French and the other was speaking Greek, and we could not talk to each other. Just to explain to them what was blockchain, why was it useful for them, how is it different from what they currently do, at a time when blockchain and Bitcoin was synonymous, was probably the interesting challenge that we found working with our customers. Initially, it was hard. We had to kind of change the way we talked. They had to kind of be patient with us, and there were some champions inside that organization who did support us. But now we have an excellent working relationship with them. Our engagement has grown 6 or 7-fold since we started talking to each other. And again, I think it's the thing that you realize when you talk to people from different aspects, because when you talk to customer, you're not necessarily talking to the tech team, right? You're talking to the business team, you're talking to the accounts team, you're talking to the operations team. So the kind of exposure that you get is a wealth of learning, and you kind of learn about things that you have never thought about, right? So that has been the experience that I wanted to share about a first customer. Sachin, over to you.
So ours, we actually that was an enterprise company, and It was all about doing the operational intelligence in a real-time streaming manner. And we actually demonstrated our product, and then we agreed for the POC. And the POC was never ending. The goalpost was shifting, and it was really mind-boggling to see how things were getting added every other week. But finally, we agreed to close that, and we deployed that in their on-premise, their data center. And then finally, we realized that we actually started with with a very, very small deliverable, and we ended up actually delivering a lot more than what we committed. Of course, it helped us build those things also, and it was in the right direction for us to do. But the monthly charges that the invoice that we were generating was for the first initial small thing, and then that is still frankly going on. So the big learning there was that we, as a startup, we become so excited to see customer, and we want to solve all their problem, and then we don't realize that if they can actually draw on us also with just aligning with one single guy. And so that was a mixed experience. We gained a lot from that. We got the customer, but we ended up giving a lot more for very, very small number, which is fine, because for first customer we never wanted money, was not the goal. But there was a learning there, that we need to have a lot more structure when we go and discuss with enterprise, because those guys are very smart, and they deal with these things day in, day out. And so we need to be actually at least be on the same page when it comes to offering the solution or platform to the customer. So it was a good experience, but it was a very involving and hectic, and a lot of night outs were there in order to get that customer finally integrated.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that's something, we also try to tell our startups when they start doing the POCs with NetApp here, is that, decide on the scope of work. And that's the messaging we also share with the teams internally, that, if you're deciding to do a POC, decide the scope, don't shift it, be very clear. What is the timeline? What do you aim to achieve out of it? And that's when spend that time in planning, and then begin the execution. So yes. Yeah, our next question, it's a very interesting question, and I'm looking forward to the answer. And this is from Pawanar. For an organization like NetApp, how do you sustain the innovation pipeline, where we see a constant influx of ideas from our innovators within NetApp?
Yeah, let me take a stab at that. I worked at HP Labs, and if you look at industrial research labs, there's a wide spectrum of models, right? So on one extreme is Microsoft Research Labs, and I haven't tracked them for a few years now, but the last I tracked them, Microsoft Research Labs was structured exactly like HP Labs, where the budget used to come from the central budget, and the target was paper publishing and patents. Then there are hybrid models. There was one point where part of the budget, on the other extreme are research labs and innovation centers and advanced technology departments, where the budget comes primarily from the business itself, right? Now there are trade-offs in both sense, and there's a third model, which is what IBM Research Lab uses, where the innovation team's budget comes partly from the central budget, but part of it has to be sponsored by the business. And lastly, of course, there's the Google model, where 20% of the time of every employee is left for innovation. There is no good answer that I have seen which works consistently. Having said that, the Microsoft and HP way of running innovation centers is currently out of favor, right? There are very few research labs and innovation centers where there is no responsibility towards business, and primary responsibility is in terms of patents and paper publishing. I think that model has kind of gone out of favor. I think the most successful model, at least as of today, and this keeps changing, is the IBM research model, where part of the budget must be generated from the business, and part of the revenue for the research center should be generated from the central budget and trying to walk that balance. I think the new approach that you folks are doing, where technology companies are kind of partnering with startups, is a very interesting recent trend in the last 5 years. I think we are still learning as a society how this model will evolve, but I think that's the way to go forward, right? Kind of like a hybrid team, especially if you can find an opportunity where the technology of the startup can be combined with the technology of the enterprise to go to market. I think that's something very interesting. This kind of thread builds something on what Cisco started a couple of decades ago, and Madhurima and me were talking about it the other day. They called it the spin-out model, where they used to kind of fund a small team with 50% of their salaries, give them office space, but take a part in the equity of the company. And that did well. Cisco did do some interesting acquisitions with that path. And what we are seeing now is the mirror image of that, which is the spin in, where you are kind of working with startups. I think the collaboration in this is still need to be figured out as to how exactly does a startup and a large organization like HP or NetApp or Cisco work together closely. But the only thing I will say is that that collaboration will not succeed if it is a technology only collaboration. There has to be a revenue generating path for both the organizations for a collaboration like that to succeed. Sachin, over to you.
Yeah, some of the interesting things that are happening in the market, as Praful was also trying to explain, is partnering with startup. It's a pretty good thing, win-win for both the guys. The second thing is there are a lot of internal customers, like the employees, and they are the best actually, at least in the area in which the company is working, because they know the business and the technology and even the code base and everything. So they know the opportunity gap, and where the SWOT analysis is, I think they do very nicely. So they could be the best innovators in my opinion, at least in that area. And what happens traditionally, it has been happening, and now it happens less, but still happening, that they will have to actually quit the job and go out and take the risk and do it all those things on their own. Instead, if suppose they get the support from the company itself, and if they're able to actually sell it to their stakeholders, the company, their seniors, the decision makers, then spinning that thing from within the company, it could be nothing could be better than that, because you are still in the same comfortable space you were. You will keep getting the monthly financial support, and you are doing what you already know from both the business and technology perspective. And in the end, the company will be the gainer, and it's again a win-win scenario. So. Giving platform to the internal guys for more innovation, of course, through right processes and structure. I think it's a very, very good idea, because the person will not have to leave the job and do it on his or her own, which is very, very tough. And that's where actually most of the startup fails before even starting it. So this is, I think, number two. And number three, I also feel that these big companies could also become, depending upon their choice, strategic or non-strategic investors in different startups, whether they are working with that startup or not. That could be done. And as we see, most of the big companies, especially the tech companies, are doing it, and they are becoming. So, for example, Microsoft has got its own venture fund, and they are non-strategic in nature. They say that we want to earn money. So explicitly, they need to actually spell it out what exactly they want out of that arm, and then go about it. So it will help the ecosystem, complete ecosystem. Right now, what is happening is that the initial phase of the startup here in India, it started a bit late compared to the Bay Area and some of the companies that started much before in Israel also. So we have been in a catching up game, number one. Number two, predominantly India has been a service oriented company. So people are shying away from technology for a long time, even though some of the biggest tech companies in the world are here as well, but most of them are US companies. So the innovation wise, not much innovation happened in the technology area. And the biggest problem here with tech companies is that it is not going to fly next day. In an operational centric company, you could, if you are a marketplace, it depends on how much money actually you invest to buy product and sell it on your platform. and you will start seeing the cash flow next day. But in technology, it takes a lot of time to build the product and build the company. So we need support both from financially, the ecosystem support, the mentorship support, and also some of the inspiring personalities, leaders should be there out in the market, taking the responsibility and speaking with people and coaching them. So there, this whole holistic, need here, if we really want to grow the tech innovation here in India. And if you see what Steve Wozniak said when he was here in India, last time in Mumbai, he was lambasting everyone that 1.3 crore Indians and not even a single solid tech company from India. So this is there. A lot of people have this kind of a feeling outside specifically. So it is the onus is actually on the stakeholders here who are in the position to do something to create the ecosystem and support these tech companies who really need little bit longer time to get to a point where they could self-sustain and grow, exponentially. Unlike some of the operational heavy company like consumer internet, where it's all money game, who gets more funding and they will scale faster. I've been in that shoe earlier in with Zabong and other company, and I've seen how it works. You need to burn like crores and crores of rupees every day in order to be in the game. Just be in the game. Forget about getting cash positive anyway in next couple of years. So there is a problem, and we are of course gaining the ground, but there are a lot more to be done. And then the responsibility is on the innovators, founders, companies who are here in India, some of the successful guys, and some of the inspiring leaders. Everyone has to come and the venture funds. They have to understand that core tech company, it's a different ball game completely when it comes to dealing with these kind of startups.
Thanks, Sachin. So just being cognizant of the time, we have a lot more questions that are still flowing in, and I think I'm going to, request Satish to share these with you over email, and you can, respond to the people who have asked this. But before we close, I will, just ask you one more question. If you had one person to thank, if there is one person you want to thank, who would that be?
Well, undoubtedly, it
Well,
has
you all
to be
can
the...
thank me giving you this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Madhurima. No, definitely thank you. But I mean, undoubtedly, it has to be the family, right? I mean, the family takes the bulk of the hit, whether it's your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, whoever it is. It has to be the family. There is no two ways about it. Sachin?
Yeah, after thanking Madhurima, definitely, it's I will go with the family as well. Even your kids who don't understand what's happening and they just support you like anything. I think the biggest uh, help you get is from family only.
No, truly, truly, I think that's true. In all we do, it's the family that's around us, that supports us, motivates us when we are, feeling low, not feeling well, feeling great. Those are the guys, especially in COVID times today, right? I mean, we've been stuck with our families, hopefully with our families, for a while. So thank you, everybody. We will share the other questions, and those of you whose questions could not be answered, now live, we will make sure that you get the answers on email or get a chance to connect with Praful or Sachin offline as well. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.